The other day I was talking to a small food producer who said to me, do you know what you've done? You've essentially created something that is extremely disruptive to the Australian food industry. In fact, it's the most disruptive technology ever. And in fact, we have celebrity chef Matt Moran is one of our shareholders. And he also said that he thinks this is going to turn the entire worldwide food industry and across Australia on its head. So what is so exciting? What got these guys so excited? Oomami essentially solves what is a huge problem across Australia. It's a huge problem across the world. It's the problem of small producers not being able to reach customers en masse. So we have created a system that does away with food distributors and can potentially do away with many of the retailers, such as your large supermarkets. And we transfer a large portion of those sales from the large companies like your Nestle's, your Unilevers, across to small producers who make similar products but they're better. So if we were to quantify it, essentially what we're doing is we are solving what in Australia alone is a $50 billion problem. As I said, it has been spoken about extensively in the media, but no viable solution has been found to date. So, a few individuals in large supermarkets and distributors can decide what 90% of the population has access to. When you walk into a store and you look at the products on the shelf, somebody actually made that decision as to whether or not you were going to see that product to begin with. So essentially what's happening is small food producers are being pushed to the side in favour of the large companies. So in Australia, the Australian food and groceries industry is worth over $103 billion. And worldwide, the industry is worth well over $3 trillion and growing rapidly to over $4 trillion within the next few years. So essentially, you can divide the food and groceries space into two main categories. On the one side there, you have all the large companies, all the companies that you're familiar with, all the companies that you see in the supermarkets. And then on the other hand, you'll have all these small companies that you'll never see in a supermarket, and which essentially I'm quite sure most of you have probably never even seen. I would be surprised if anyone in here is familiar with more than one of the brands on that board on the right-hand side there. So let's take some practical examples and see what this actually looks like in practice. So let's take bread, a staple in Australia, $2.6 billion industry. Over 54% of all the revenue generated in that industry is being generated by just two companies. How many people knew that? So the ABS has stated that over 1/4 of all the enterprises just in the food industry are actually non-employing entities. This basically means that they're small companies. Okay, and a further 54% of all the food entities in that industry are actually employing less than 20 people. So what you end up with is 75% of all food businesses, these are farmers, these are food companies, small food brands, over 75% across Australia and across the world are actually small businesses that most of you have probably never even seen before, and they make great products. So where are they selling? They're selling through farmers markets, through their own websites. They're quite difficult to reach and find. Let's look at milk. It's a $3.2 billion industry, and over 55% of all the revenue generated in that industry is being generated by only 4 companies. If you go across to snack foods, same thing. If you go across to ice cream, cheese, you can go across to every single category in food across Australia and worldwide, and you'll find that at least half the revenue generated by each of those industries is being generated by only a handful of companies. Okay, so what has allowed these companies to become so dominant in each of their marketplaces, or in each of their sectors, I should say? And in one word, it's infrastructure. So I've been working in the food industry for over 25 years, and I can tell you that it's infrastructure. Infrastructure is what gives customers easy access to products, and products easy access to customers. So we're talking about national warehousing and distribution networks, thousands of bricks and mortar stores across Australia and across the world. We're talking about online stores like those of Coles and Woolies Online, which have thousands of products all in one place. And we're also talking about the pick and pack facilities to be able to facilitate those orders. And then finally, the fleets of trucks to get those products from those stores and those warehouses across to customers across the country. And also click and collect networks, which you'll see at petrol stations and public places. So on the other hand, what do small producers have access to? They don't get access to those infrastructures. They get access instead to farmers markets, which operate 1 or 2 days a month, if you're lucky, and if it's not raining. They get access to their own website, which they can build. But realistically, how many people here would do their weekly shopping by going to 20 different websites and ordering and then receiving and paying for 20 separate deliveries? That's what you end up with this kind of a scenario. So essentially what we've done is we've created something very unique. I want you to imagine now, as an example, an online and offline set of infrastructures that basically competes with the large corporates, with the Coles and the Woolies online, but which is dedicated to small producers. And that's essentially what we've done. So I believe that what's going to happen is if we make products made by small producers as easy to access or easier to access than those available through the large supermarkets and all the big companies, you would have a huge shift of revenue going from the large companies across to all the small companies, some of those brands that I showed you earlier. And you would see a huge transfer of wealth, and you would see market equality take place. So, is there demand for products made by small producers? I get that question a lot, and the answer is yes. If you look at the rapid growth in the popularity of farmers markets over the last decade across Australia and worldwide, you'll know that consumers actually want products made by small producers. There is demand for it, but it's just too inconvenient and too difficult to easily access thousands of products made by small producers in one place. On the other hand, small producers do in fact want to grow their businesses. Surprise, surprise. But the lack of infrastructure makes it quite difficult for them to do that. They can advertise on Instagram and so forth, but that lack of infrastructure makes it impossible for them to be able to effectively reach customers en masse. So what we're offering is an online and not predominantly an online, but soon an offline offering, which will have thousands of products made by small producers, all on one website, on one app in this particular case as well. We are also providing warehousing and pick and pack facilities linked to that online infrastructure. And then also we actually have the third largest delivery network across the country. It's an outsourced solution that we're using, and we're able to get products to 90% of the population right now. Actually, and I should go back and I should mention one thing also. There's currently no discovery method for consumers to be able to discover products made by small producers. As you can imagine, small producers don't have access to the multi-million-dollar marketing budgets, so there needs to be an effective and cheap way for consumers to be able to find these new brands that they've never seen before, and these products, become familiar with them, and then buy those products. So let's take an example. Let's assume that a store or a cafe in Perth saw some great ice cream products by a company in Sydney, and they wanted to buy a few boxes to start stocking it. Now, remind you, this is a frozen product. How on earth does the company, this small business in Sydney, get 3 boxes of ice cream across to Perth cost effectively? They can't. That's the problem that we're dealing with. Or imagine a consumer, they work hard, they might even work on a weekend, they can't attend a farmer's market for whatever reason, and surprise, surprise, they don't want to go to 20 different websites to do their weekly shopping. How do they purchase products regularly for their weekly grocery shopping from small producers and get it delivered to their homes in one box? They can't. So as a result, well over $50 billion in sales that could potentially be generated by small producers is being lost and forfeited to the larger companies simply because of convenience. It's just too hard to deal with small producers, even though they make great products. So we have created an online B2B marketplace. We have created this warehousing and pick and pack facility, which we've outsourced to another company. We also have the delivery network, as I said earlier, that can deliver to most of the country. And Oomami is actually a social platform. When you go onto the site, you'll see that it looks and feels very much like Instagram. It's very easy to use, it's very intuitive. People can do more than just post products. It's actually a social experience, just like a farmer's market. Now let's look at some competitors. Farmhouse Direct, I'm sure most of you have heard of them. They're a B2C only marketplace. They don't do B2B, we do both. There's no warehousing and logistics, which means that essentially as a consumer I can't use this product to do all my weekly grocery shopping because it's just too difficult, and there are no social features. Then you have Automation, it's a B2B platform, same thing. And then finally, we essentially make money by charging commissions and so forth on the platform. And so that's pretty much it. We help small producers to grow their businesses and automate. That's what we do. So thank you for your time, and I look forward to talking to you all later.